Hey everyone, my name is Roy, and in today's recording I'll be showing how you can query Airtable using GraphQL. Airtable doesn't come with native support for GraphQL, but they do have a REST API endpoint, which we can use together with StepZen to create a GraphQL interface. So what I've done here, I went to the Airtable documentation. So if you would go to airtable.com/API, you can click on all your different Airtable instances you have deployed, or instances. Actually, it's a table because Airtable is all about tables, and one of those that I have in there is called conferences and meetups. And in here, I keep track of all the meetups and conferences I'll be speaking at. So the documentation shows you a lot of different things. It also shows you how to use it together with JavaScript, Ruby, or Python. But today we'll be using GraphQL. And before diving into the REST API of Airtable, let's go to StepZen GraphQL Studio. As I said, there are two different ways to use Airtable using GraphQL. And the first way is by using StepZen GraphQL Studio, which is a place where you can find different SaaS APIs that have been graphicalized by us. And if you scroll to the list, which is quite extensive, you can also find Airtable itself, which is actually one of the first few results, as this list is ordered alphabetically. And if you click here, you can see there is a schema created based on the REST API that Airtable has. And also there's an example query. And I cannot run this example query just yet. I already filled in my details by using this page. But what I haven't done is insert my table name. If I would go here, I can actually find that my table name is somewhere hidden in the REST API. Because here my table name is actually called calendar. Just copy paste this one. I go back to StepZen GraphQL Studio and I insert my table name. So what this will do, it send a query to StepZen based on Airtable. It takes the API key and the base ID that I saved right there. And the API key can be found by pressing this button, and the base ID is actually this variable. And then it takes these variables and it will return all the records that I have in my Airtable table, which is the ID, created time, and then all the fields that are in there. An example, the fields about name, dates, links, or whatever I've put inside the Airtable. And in here, I can just press run, and it will return the data. As you can see, it has some fields in there. It's called end date, event name, location, and start name, which are actually the dates that are belonging to the events that I put in my table. I can also look at this by opening the base and then see what my actual table looks like. So this is my Airtable instance, and you can see it has an event name, a start date, the location, all these things. And these are the fields you can also access by using StepZen GraphQL Studio. And this is really convenient if you want to do this somewhere quickly in a project. So if you click on this endpoint, you can copy paste it, and you can call this GraphQL endpoint from any application that you've built. You don't need any keys or whatsoever. And if you want to make some changes to the schema, you can just pull in this endpoint using a download and build function or by using StepZen import GraphQL. And when you run StepZen import GraphQL, make sure to copy paste this endpoint and use it from your terminal. But as I said, there are two different methods to import, or actually to query Airtable using GraphQL. Let's have a look at the second one. And for the second one, we'll be using this REST API from Airtable again, but this time we'll be importing this curl command instead of instead of using the Airtable API using StepZen GraphQL Studio. We'll be building our own GraphQL API on our local machine. For this, I need to show my API key and copy paste this curl. Inside a new VS Code project, I've already created a working directory called Airtable GraphQL. And in here, I need to make sure that I'm logged in, which I can do by running StepZen whoami. And this will return some fields if I'm logged in. As you can see, my account is called Beaverdam, and the keys are already there, which is perfectly fine. And I don't need my keys anymore because they're already stored on my local machine. So what I do here is run StepZen import, and then I paste my curl command. Put in a space there as well. But it takes the REST API endpoint from Airtable, my base ID, the name of the table, and also my key from Airtable. So when I press enter, StepZen will start importing this curl request and transform it to a GraphQL API. At first, I need to tell what my endpoint should be called. I can either go with the default or go for something else like StepZen API/Airtable. When I press enter, it starts executing my curl request in our own backends, and then it will transform the result into a GraphQL schema, as you can see in this file called curl. So these are all the response fields, and this is the actual query that has been created. And you can see it's now called my query, but I can use all sorts of flags inside my StepZen import curl request to make this look nicer. So let's try it again and actually start over. Let's delete everything except for the StepZen file that has my endpoint name. If I run StepZen import curl again, I can add some flags like query name, can be something like query Airtable. And I can also do something like query type and use Airtable here. The import will look a bit nicer now as soon as this command has been executed. And as you can see, it won't be asking for an endpoint name again, as I kept the StepZen configuration file in place. And now if I go to the curl file, you can see my query is now called query Airtable, and my response type is now called Airtable as well, which looks way nicer. And now the only thing I need to do to get a GraphQL API is run StepZen start, which will then deploy my schema, which I've just created using StepZen import curl, and deploy it to StepZen to create a production-ready API endpoint for you on the cloud. And as you can see, it's deployed on this URL. I can use this curl request to query my GraphQL endpoint, or I can find a local copy of the GraphQL playground by pressing this button. And the same query that we've done before is also a query we can do here. So if I try it out, Airtable query, maybe just try fields, records, and then fields is inside. And I can actually do more things like the end date and maybe the name or title. Let me see what fields are in there. We're going to docs, press on query, Airtable, fields, then an example do end date and location. Press run. It will actually call the REST API from Airtable and return this data for me. So this data is now being queried using GraphQL from my local machine instead of using StepZen GraphQL Studio. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, as we'll be posting regular videos on every Tuesday. And if you like our content even more, go to stepzen.com/getting started and sign up for an account, because then you'll be able to query all your existing REST APIs and databases using GraphQL. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.